white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic, all members of a majority are biased against the members of the minority or oppressed group. In fact, most people are racist, misogynistic, transphobic, ableist, etc.
There are 3 genders, 4 genders, even 5.
Mama doesn't think that's true. Julia sometimes does things differently because Julia has autism.
Now, I know it's become trendy to hate on social justice warriors. It's almost borderline overdone to hate on people like feminists, anti-Trump protesters, social justice warriors, etc. So here are my personal reasons why I can't stand social justice warriors.
I'm Justin Dennis. I make YouTube videos about social justice and gender and sexuality. And also I identify as a transgender woman and non-binary and a lesbian.
How can you be a lesbian, a sexuality that assumes both partners are women, and also be non-binary? Like, that makes no sense.
Let's say that you're trying to be a good ally to trans people and you heard that sex and gender are 2 different things. Sex is biological and gender is a social construct. That's not entirely true. Hormones, secondary sex characteristics, genitals, and gonads cannot be accurately used to determine someone's sex. For example, if someone was assigned male at birth but took puberty blockers and hormones and had a vaginoplasty, they would have female hormones, secondary sex characteristics, and genitals. So 3 of their 5 ways of determining sex would be female.
It's a little fascinating how the links in his description box are based off of biased websites like transequality.org and everydayfeminism.com, and then he's preaching about topics that argue that sex is a social construct. Like, sex is a social construct. Okay.
Serve no purpose. There's no reason to divide XX people and XY people. That is an arbitrary distinction that has no effect on how the person looks or behaves or navigates the world. You can't know someone's chromosomes by looking at them, and even if you could, it wouldn't give you any useful information about the person. That's the point I'm trying to make. Sex is not a biological fact because it is determined by things that are largely changeable, and the only part of it that is unchangeable doesn't have any real-world effect.
I really hate to sound like a convoluted bitch, but you are completely wrong. The primary means of determining sex are the gonads. Gonads, of course, ensure reproducibility, which is a key factor in establishing sex. Functional males and functional females are able to reproduce. That is why those with genetic defects such as Klinefelter syndrome, Turner syndrome, or those who are simply deemed intersex are sterile. Hormone level is tied into the behavioral aspect of males and females, but that's a whole nother video in itself. Now onto the whole argument that chromosomes are meaningless in sex determination. For basic biology, there's a gene on the Y chromosome called the sex-determining region Y gene. This gene is responsible for male sexual development. Sex-linked genes that exist on sex chromosomes establish the biological differences between males and females. It's practically moronic to discredit sex as a biological concept.
We're raised to believe that gender is based on biology, and that features that are typically associated with one sex are repulsive or shocking on the other binary gender.
I feel like it's become a trend for social justice warriors to deny the biological aspect of gender. They've come up with this preconceived notion that gender is a byproduct of socialization, when there are studies that support this idea that gender is in fact biologically based. For example, males are better than females at mathematical and spatial reasoning. And then you have these people arguing that these men are taking up all these STEM jobs. Like, how dare they?
I'm a feminist because jobs! Women only hold 1 in 4 STEM jobs. We own 6% of TV stations, 5% of executive positions in the media. Because when I was younger and I took on a leadership role, all the adults in my life said, "You're being bossy."
A large aspect of why males are more likely to be found in STEM jobs is because they are innately better at it. They have better analytical skills on average than their female counterparts. Also, females are biologically more inclined to nurturing roles because they are built to be nurturers. That is why females are more prevalent in jobs that involve caretaking and nurturing as opposed to males. There are also many clear biological differences between males and females. Like for one, males have larger amygdalas than females, which supports why males have a greater sexual drive. Now, let's be real. You probably didn't click this video to get a lesson on why gender is not a social construct. So let's look at who actually brought about this idea that gender is a social construct. His name was John Money, a sexologist born in 1921. He brought about this idea that gender is something that is learned through experience rather than biologically based. To support his idea, he studied the effects of sex reassignment surgery. In 1960, a couple named Janet and Ronald Reimer had a child named David Reimer. Because of a failed circumcision, the child had a severed penis. John Money suggested that the child should be raised as a girl and that the child should undergo sex reassignment surgery, having his penis and testicles removed. This case was meant to serve as a basis to prove his idea that gender is a social construct and is learned rather than innately based. John Money attempted to persuade David's family to have an artificial vagina created for David. However, the family denied. In 2000, David and his twin brother Brian were allegedly forced by John Money to perform various sexual acts on each other. John Money argued that these sexual acts were necessary to solidify David's gender identity as a female. This again was meant to prove that gender is learned. John Money continued pressuring the family into having David undergo surgery for an artificial vagina, and the family ceased visits with the sexologist. Despite growing up as a female, David Reimer argued that he always felt more like a boy. As an aftermath of the case study, the twin brother Brian was diagnosed with schizophrenia and died from antidepressants in 2002. In 2004, David Reimer fell into depression and committed suicide. Again, this case study was a result of a man who deemed gender as a social construct and was attempting to prove it through this experiment. But you know, gender is a social construct.
All white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic, all members of a majority are biased against the members of the minority or oppressed group. In fact, most people are racist, misogynistic, transphobic, ableist, etc.
I can't seem to decide what I find more ironic. The fact that she's arguing that all white people are racist when she's in fact white. The fact that she's arguing that of the 7 billion people that exist on this earth, a majority of them are racist. Or the fact that as a transgender, she is throwing out this notion that all cis people are transphobic. Can you imagine if we lived in a world where a majority of the people are in fact racist, misogynistic, and transphobic? We definitely wouldn't be at the population we are at right now if that shit was true. A majority of these social justice warriors get their ideas from Tumblr. Like, for example, if you give your children names that aren't gender neutral, you're deciding their gender for them, and that's really fucked up. White privilege is never having to spell your last name. The fact that pretty teeth are only known as white and straight is a manifestation of our hatred for minorities. Racial preferences are racist. There is no line. No one can be racist to white people because we are the privileged race. We are not oppressed. Reverse racism doesn't exist. A friendly reminder that dating is just a social construct designed by the patriarchy to keep women from fully experiencing life. The social acceptability of baking culture versus the hatred of pumpkin spice culture. This is an example of misogyny because male interests are always cool and female interests are always shameful. Moreover, it's really ridiculous that gendering has made a sway to food flavors. As we know, bourgeois society kills trans gals who cannot afford cosmetics and gender-conforming apparel. Shoplifting is therefore 100% cool and okay, and trans gal shoplifters deserve to be protected.